Bamfordrose and another question of the week. 3 things in one on this question of the week. I'm going to talk briefly about the sales portal and best places to buy a car from outside of the sales portal, which will lead into the reason why we're in this 07 DB9, which is forget the concerns buying from franchise dealer and brand specialist seller. This car identifies the pitfalls of buying from a performance car specialist. But before those 2 things, we just want to give a plug to our open day on the 21st of August. I've got a lot of registered interest already, but we've still got a number of spaces available if you'd like to come on that day. It will run from 10 till 3, and why not combine a pop in here with a drive around the Cotswolds? There's some great driving routes around here. We're going to have some cars for sale, and a few days before the open day we'll conclude what they are. If you're already an owner, it's a great chance to pop in, have a look around our facility, have a look at some of the products we offer, chat about Astons with us, and chat about Astons with plenty of other like-minded owners who pop in for the day. So please register your interest by sending me an email, and we look forward to seeing you on Saturday the 21st. To help bring to life the sales portal, I'm going to relax the rules slightly. So if you are an owner and you want to sell your car, then become a member of our Facebook sales portal and feel free to advertise the car on there without any inspection done by us. If the colour, spec, age, mileage, indicative price catches the eye of a prospective buyer, then that's the point where the car should come to us for an inspection, and then the buyer can go into that purchase eyes wide open, fully informed, which is the whole purpose of the sales portal. If you're a member of that group and you want a particular car, it's perfectly okay to give a shout out and ask if anyone is selling a car of your make model that you're interested in. So in question of the week 107, I gave advice on the essential questions to ask a vendor, typically if this was a franchise dealer. The questions to ask to get them in writing, giving a condition report of a few key aspects of the car. Then, because it's from franchise dealer, we don't need to do a pre-purchase inspection, but we do a post-purchase inspection, and should we find any concerns, it will be inside the areas in which those questions I said to raise would cover. And because you would have had a status report in writing pre-purchase, means that post-purchase, if we find anything to the contrary, then it's very easy to get that dealt with. I got a few comments back from that saying that I'm probably the least popular person of the franchise network, and whilst I can empathise with that, this is all about making sure you as the buyer is not being ripped off, or perhaps if ripped off is too strong a word, then certainly you're not having the wool pulled over your eyes. I have seen emails from customers forwarded to me from franchise dealer where somebody from the franchise network does write down that any concern over the carbon ceramic brakes is unwarranted because they are fit for life. They're either talking from a script or have absolutely no idea on how a car functions in reality, or they are being completely disingenuous. A braking surface is a heat and friction and wear surface, and if it's a wearing part, then it's quite obviously not fit for life. Ultimately, it depends on what life actually means. But if you're buying a carbon ceramic car which is approaching 50-60,000 miles, then at something like 20,000 miles per front pad set, those discs are going to be approaching the end of a 3rd pad set, meaning that the discs, if original, are going to be at end of life. All of the questions that I set out to ask, the approach to take when buying a car, is there to protect the buyer. And this is reversing for what's been in place too long, which is the whole industry geared towards protecting and making as much money for the seller as possible. Before starting Bamfordrose 10 years ago now, I worked for other car companies, sat behind a desk, busy designing, developing engines, and for that 20-year period, I did myself buy cars from garages. Naively, blindly, you put your faith in the person that you're buying the car from. You believe everything they're saying. And whilst there are some good guys out there, there's a lot of smarm that goes on, and what they tell you has been done is a completely different story in reality. Working here at Bamfordrose really opened my eyes to that, and opened my eyes to the lengths at which some sellers go to cut corners, to spend the bare minimum possible and sell the car in that state to an unsuspecting buyer. Now, there are some good guys out there, and if I recommend some good sales outlets, then there's bound to be a couple of cases where somebody thought that they didn't get the best service possible, and I'll recommend somewhere and someone will say a bad story of which they experienced at that establishment. But in the whole, if you're looking for a good franchised retail outlet, then the two best names from lots of feedback I have with chats from customers would be a place in Bristol and a place in Walton-on-Thames. If you're looking for the best place to independently buy a car, then I'd recommend Nicholas Mee, and then we come to the performance car specialists. This is the real rogue end of the business, but equally there are some good guys out there as well. A good place I can recommend will be Mather Collectibles, and this is where you can spot the difference. This is someone who puts their name to a car when they sell it. I've worked on a couple of cars that Mather have sold, and when the car comes here for repair work or servicing pre-sale, it gets whatever it needs with no corners cut. Obviously, these cars are probably going to retail for a little bit more than the wider performance car specialist world, but it's really worth it because it's being prepared to his standard with his name on it. Which brings us to the DB9 we're sat in, which was sold by a performance car specialist. Now, on the face of it, this is quite a nice car. The paint is quite good, interior is quite good, unmarked, not worn. It's an 07 with 32,000 miles on the clock, and it genuinely presents itself as a good car until you get it on a ramp. The owner of this car had done his homework, and he didn't get a pre-purchase inspection done by us because logistically that was quite some miles away. It had been quite difficult to have done that, but he got the performance car specialist selling the car to take it to franchise dealer who gave it a service. The report back from them was it was a great car. The performance car specialist said it was a great car, and the new buyer has bought the car thinking he's got a great car. He's watched all of Bamfordrose videos, very wise, and it's come here for a primary decat and a couple of additional service items that he knew didn't take place at the franchise dealer when it was serviced, so-called, prior to sale. He then gets a little bit of a shock when we report back the findings of an inspection report that we've done, because it was clear that the car was not as tip-top as what it had been billed. And the next shock comes from when it does need a few repairs. Even though a couple of those repairs had failed MOT, the warranty, which looked really prestigious on its paperwork, didn't actually renew any of those components. The cover didn't cover those components which it failed on MOT. So the service from franchise dealer wasn't worth the paper it was written on. The warranty not worth the paper it's written on. All because used car salesmen do what used car salesmen do, which is spend the absolute bare minimum to put a car on the forecourt and sell it. It could be that the service they asked the franchise dealer to do was just simply an oil and filter change and stamp the book. They might not have asked them to do a condition report. It could have been that thrifted, cost down activity of literally an oil and filter change. In years gone by, I've done a similar sort of work stream for performance car specialists. And the car comes for a service. You know they only want to spend the bare minimum. And when you flag stuff that the car really, really needs, but they can get away without doing that to sell it, puts us in a bit of a compromising position. And I'll not really want to work for performance car vendors anymore. I also get performance car vendors bring the car here to fix, and in the course of fixing the car, making it functional to be sold, There'll be a few other things highlighted that the car really needs, and they won't want us to do those because they just don't want to spend money on it. The lengths to which corners are cut in the used car sales world is just staggering, which is why the sales portal idea is so good. It's just a few buyers out there, whilst they want to purchase the best car possible, most honest, straight car possible. Some of them will use the car for a few years, it's going to be wearing and tearing, and they're probably going to brush a few problems under the carpet, and then selling it in a transparent way, like an idea like the sales portal, means that those issues won't be able to be brushed under the carpet. They'll probably try and trade it in at a garage somewhere, and ultimately an owner doing that, a used car salesman wanting to do the bare minimum, just keeps repeating this cycle in the industry. On the face of it, the performance car specialist that this car was bought from was tip top, a very good one. That outside facade fools the customer into thinking that the car that they're buying is actually tip-top, well looked after, prepared perfectly. They're just overlooking or being naive to the fact that used car salesmen, apart from the professionals like Mather, can't be trusted as far as you could kick them. So pretty much immediately after sale, here's the rundown of what's going on underneath of this DB9 that does look quite presentable on the surface. Failed MOT on both rear dampers, visible signs of leaks down the leg of the damper. One of the rear LED lamps is flickering and inoperative. Advised a new rear lamp. Needs 4 lower suspension wishbone arms. Rear subframe is beyond surface corrosion, and really it does need removal and restoration. Metal sections of all 4 brake linings are corroded, they need renewal. Engine auxiliary drive belt, pulley tensioners all need renewing. So there's some MOT failures there and some pretty fundamental issues with the car that was missed or not asked to be checked at the service by franchise dealer. But by inference, you'd expect that those things as the consumer were actually checked as part of service. But all of those wear items, along with perhaps tyres and brakes getting a bit tired, at 30,000-40,000 miles on a DB9 is all par for the course, unless you can see in the history that there are invoices proving that those wear items have been renewed recently. A car like this with reasonably good paint, good interior, low mileage is still a good buy. But the problem for this owner is that he paid a price which was at the upper end because he thought the car was tip top. So if he'd have bought this car in the private market, in reality it'd have been no worse off, because although the performance car specialist that he bought the car from looked flashy, he'd got several sheets of paper with what looked to be a warranty which would cover the car in after sales, and it doesn't, means that it'd have been better off buying the car privately for a significantly reduced fee, and the money that he would have saved would have repaired all of those wear and consumable items. In previous videos I've shown the difference between a really well cared for V8 and one that's a bit distressed, but the distressed car, polished up, is probably going to try and sell itself on the market for a figure higher than what it should have really sold for, considering the wear and the spend that that car needs. That is hammering home the point of doing your pre-purchase inspection. When I have a car inside the workshop and it's got one of these warranty policies from a company that you've never heard of before, and I tell the customer, I'm sorry sir, your car needs X, Y or Z repairing, they're then quite pleased and say, well, I've got warranty. If you could administer that claim for me, that'd be much appreciated. I look at the policy, see it's from a company that I've never heard of before, and just know how that conversation's going to go. I phone the warranty company up, I'm put on hold for about 10 minutes and start the conversation off by saying, hi there, I'd just like to check that component X, Y or Z is not covered by your warranty. Because unlike when you call up one of the big warranty players, the companies that you've never heard of before don't even include the basic items, and they're excluded from any warranty claim. So in this video I'm hammering home the point about the performance car specialist, and whilst there might be an exception or two, they're really no better than buying a car privately. When you're buying a car privately, half of it is about who you're buying the car from. If you knock the door, strike a conversation with the seller, get a rapport going, who you're buying from is almost as important as what you're actually buying. So in summary, the advice would be a couple of the franchise dealers that I mentioned previously. There's only one independent reseller that I would put my faith in. Performance car specialists like Mather that are putting their name to the car, or privately with a pre-purchase inspection, or the sales portal with a pre-purchase inspection. If you're going franchise dealer route, then check out Question of the Week 107, where I give the most important questions to ask them. What we're trying to avoid is the scenario of this car. Essentially, it's a real nice car, but the purchase price plus the repair price means instead of being in an 07 car, it could have probably got in the seat of a 470 bhp glass key DB9. And remember, if you're interested to come on our open day on Saturday the 21st of August, then email me in the link below. Hope you like that question of the week. Really like to read your comments about how you secure the best car for your money and your buying experience. We'll see you on the next question of the week.